Next up is MIT's Hal Gregersen, who runs the school's Leadership Center and teaches some of today's smartest thinkers how to insert creativity into their business. Take it away, Hal.
It is a delight to be with you. We're going to dive deep on an issue that I've cared about for 30 years, studying leaders all over the world. And whatever your issue is, be it in business, government, education, the social sector, I'm going to suggest, and it might sound too simplistic, but there's an investment of 4 minutes each day that might make a difference in your world. How many of you have problems, challenges? If you don't, you have a problem, right? Here's my proposal on this. Whatever problem we have comes because we're probably asking the wrong question. Let me give a quote by Peter Drucker on this. The important and difficult job is never to find the right answers. It's to ask the right questions. And then he said after that, it's one of the most useless and dangerous things is the right answer to the wrong question. And so think of the problems that you have that you're stuck on. And think of why you're stuck, because the problems we have are connected to the questions we're asking. And if we want to get a new solution, what do we have to do? We've got to ask different questions. But the problem is, that's easier said than done. Because if we knew the question to ask that was new, we wouldn't be stuck in the problem, right? And so here's the deal. We have to question everything. One of the leaders, Stuart Brand, told us when we were interviewing him about how he asked the right questions. He said, "Every day I wake up wondering how many things I am dead wrong about." Isn't that an interesting way to look at the world? And I was sharing this last year in a group like this with Hasso Plattner, the co-founder of SAP, sitting in the room. He raised his hand and he's like, "That's how I wake up in the morning, trying to figure out what I'm dead wrong about." And then they get out into the world and they try to figure it out. Now, there also is a shortcut to getting that new question to unlock your problem. And I discovered this a few years ago, teaching a group of people where we were stuck. We had an issue, we were trying to wrestle with it, we were trying to get an answer to it, and we were just stuck. And here's what we did. We stopped, and we restarted, and we asked nothing but questions about the problem. Have you ever done that? Anybody? I call it catalytic questioning. So pick a problem, pick an issue, pick a challenge, pick an opportunity, get that clear in your mind. We're not going to do it today, we're going to do something else, but if you had it, get it clear in your mind. And then here's what we do. We brainstorm nothing but questions. Literally, nothing but questions. No statements, all questions. Now, as a leader, when someone asks a question, what's the natural response for most of us? Answer it, exactly. First rule is no answers. Do not give answers when you're generating nothing but questions. Second rule is, if I were to say questions now, someone might stand up in the back and start on a 10-minute preamble before they ask their question, right? No preambles. No answers, no preambles, just drop the questions into the space. Number them, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and so on. I've done this hundreds of times over the last few years about all kinds of issues, personal and professional. In about 4 minutes, I get about 20 questions. And if you get less than that, you're probably giving too many answers or you're explaining your question too much. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to do this for a few minutes. Our challenge, one that I think implicates all of us, is the following. It has to do with kids, younger kids around us, be they in Miami or anywhere else in the world. This is Matthew, a neighbor's friend when we lived just south of Paris. I was snapping the picture when Matthew was looking into that hole. And as soon as I snapped the picture, I thought, I know exactly what Matthew's going to do. And he did it. Snap. His hand goes right into that hole. He's exploring it. His mother's screaming, "What's going on?" And then, nothing happens. But the issue is he's curious. 4-year-olds are very curious about the world. But the challenge is, Watson, who was one of the discoverers of DNA, said, people are born curious, but they have it pounded out of them. Now, let me tell you in one space where it gets pounded out all around the world, and I have data on the US where it's consistent. Schools. The average 4-year-old turns 5. They go to school. By the time they're 6, in a 1-hour class segment during 1 month, they ask one question. That's appalling. They ask hundreds of questions when they're 4 years old. But they get into an environment where they're Ask lots of questions, literally. Teachers ask students 50 to 100 questions per hour. Boom, 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 boom. They give them 1 second to answer the questions. And if you don't have the question fast in 1 second, I'll give you a second question. And then you've got a half of a second to answer that one. What do these 4-year-olds learn who are exploring the world with their fantastic questions when they get to be 6 or 7 years old? Answers matter, and they better be fast, and they better be right. And the data are that I just described are not just for 6-year-olds, but they're for 18-year-olds, and they're also for people generally in most colleges and universities across this country. That, to me, is a problem. If they don't keep their questioning muscle alive, and they've got problems that we can't even imagine in their future, how are they going to be able to ask the right questions to unlock the solutions that will make this world a better place? And so here's what I want us to do. We're going to bring the lights up for just a minute. We're going to take about 3 minutes, and here's what we're going to do. We're going to do this catalytic questioning. Get 2 or 3 people. You might have paper, you might not. You might have an iPad, you might not. And for those who are live, you can do this as well individually or with people who you're with. The issue is kids stop asking questions at school. That's the challenge. It's an issue. What I want us to do is spend 3 or 4 minutes asking nothing but questions. Get into groups of 2 or 3. You've got people next to you. Do not do it alone. Remember the deal. No answers, no preambles. Get at least 20 questions. And if you don't have anything to write it down, just mentally, one of you, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, try to get to 20 questions. Deal? 3 to 4 minutes, catalytic questioning. Kids stop asking questions at school. Go. You're halfway. 2 more minutes to go. Keep pushing. 10 more questions. Okay, bingo, we're done. Okay, how many groups had 10 questions? 15? 20? 25? We got a few, there we go. Here's the deal. Here's the critical question, given what you just did. How many of you see this problem of kids are not asking questions at school? How many of you see the problem just a little bit differently than when we started 4 minutes ago? Raise your hands. Look around just for a moment. What do you think? 70% of the people have their hands up? It sounds too simplistic, I get it. We're not going to go into your questions right now or the answer to this. Here's what I'm proposing. This process is a mechanism to suspend our convictions about the problems we're facing. Once we start asking nothing but questions, the convictions we have get suspended. And when that happens, new windows open. Isn't that what just happened? And so I'm serious. This can work on anything, anytime. Let me give you a couple of examples. B. Perez, Global Sustainability Officer for Coca-Cola. I'm sitting at Coke's headquarters with her, one of her colleagues. We're talking about some issues. She's stuck on one of them. I said, B, you got 4 minutes. And she's like, yeah, here's what we're going to do, B. Right then and there, we spent 4 minutes, got a piece of paper out, generated nothing but questions. B was the person with the issue. The two of us were primarily asking the questions. And by the end of that 4 minutes, B was like, I see this problem differently. Now, you can do it alone, and I suggest doing it in duos or trios. It's much more powerful because the reason we're stuck is we can't figure out the new question. And it doesn't have to be somebody who's like us. Ideally, it's someone who's not like us. Different nationality, different gender, different background, different socioeconomic status. Find 2 or 3 people who are different. Tell them your issue. Tell them, I'm asking you 4 minutes of your time, and launch it. That's simple, informally, formally. This guy's name is Ahmed Bozer. He's the president of Coca-Cola International. There is a more extended, deeper, powerful version of this, and that is, Ahmed and his team had a very important strategic issue at Coca-Cola they had been stuck on for several years. You know those kinds of issues where you go round and round and round and you just can't get out of it? It was one of those. So we got his group of 30 people together, his top senior managers, and we essentially set up flip charts in a room. There were 5 flip charts, groups of 6. I told them, I want you to generate 100 questions about this issue. And they, like you, were like rolling their eyes. I can't do that. It's not possible. But they started doing it. And then question begets question. Before you know it, they have 100+ questions. And across the room, there are 600+ questions. And then we looked at all those questions, like which ones of these are worth our energy? Which ones of these are the key questions? Which one of these would I be willing to go put my effort and energy into? And they're often the questions that are surprising, ones we've never seen before. And questions that cause us to solve business challenges almost always cause us discomfort. You know what I'm talking about, right? It's the ones that it's like, no, I did not want to hear that, but we're uncomfortable. And the best questioners on the face of this earth, they are very comfortable with discomfort. So think to yourself, when was the last time you as a leader had someone ask you a question that was uncomfortable? Emotionally, it was awkward. And if it's been more than 7 days, I would think seriously about how you lead. Because if they're not asking you the questions, they're asking somebody. And if they're not getting good answers, they're either destroying the system you're a part of, or they're going outside of it to build a better one. Am I right? So create that sort of environment. And then get to work. Here's one of the data pieces we know about questioning, is that if all we do is ask questions, which is what we've done for the first 10 minutes here, I don't care where I am in the world, I'll ask people, you know somebody who asks all kinds of questions at work? And everybody will say, yeah, I know one of those people. And then I'll say, if you had to pick one adjective, what would that adjective be to describe that person? What would it be? It's either obnoxious or annoying, right? Now, I'm going to put a little twist on that. We know from our data from thousands of people that questions alone do not get answers that are valuable. But questions asked by somebody that are provocative and uncomfortable. But if that somebody is willing to stand up and do something about the question, in other words, go out and actually collect some data and try to solve it, they no longer become obnoxious, am I right? They're responsible. And that's what I'm promoting here, is responsible questioning that provokes the status quo to the point that we do things differently. Now, if we don't go looking for surprises by asking different questions, trust me, in one form or another, at one point in time or another, surprises will come looking for us. Watch this video, perfect example of how it happens. So trust me on this one. Either we go looking for surprises and we ask the right questions, or they get us. Now, here's a couple of final points. I believe that one of the greatest gifts we can give to ourselves as leaders is this capacity, or to re-gift to ourselves, this capacity to ask better questions. That process that we just talked about, that 4 minutes of a day, if you or I do that 4 minutes a day, every day, it's about 24 hours in a year. That's all. It's like gifting ourselves 24 hours to solve our problems better. Let me tell you 2 or 3 things that have made a difference in my life by doing this. Number one, whenever we have a problem and we're struggling with it, we're trying to figure it out, when we get in that stuck mode, do we feel great or do we feel like not so great? Great or not so great? It's terrible. It's a very uncomfortable, usually negative feeling. And before I do this exercise, I usually say to myself, okay, what's my emotional response to this issue? I'll write it down. I'll set my timer, do the 4 minutes, and then at the end of it, I'll recheck. What is my emotional response to this issue? 70, 80% of the time, the mere process of asking nothing but questions not only suspends my convictions, it changes my emotions. I come out of it in a better emotional place. And we know from the work by a lot of researchers around the world that when we've got positive emotion, we're far more likely to get ideas that are new and valuable. So we moved to that space. Let me give you a couple examples. Number one, a couple of years ago, I was at the World Economic Forum Davos meetings. I was going to moderate a panel, staged like this. For the life of me, I couldn't figure out what were the questions to ask here. How would I do this? So what did I do the night before the panel? What we just did. I pulled out a piece of paper at the hotel, got the hotel pen, wrote down nothing but questions for about 4 minutes, went to sleep. When I woke up in the morning, I looked through those, and 4 or 5 of them popped out, and they were very helpful questions. They helped me solve my problem. That's a professional one. A personal one, we have a small King Charles Cavalier Spaniel dog. They're about this small, they sit on your lap, they're lovable, they're not so smart, but that's a whole different issue. It's my wife's dog primarily. She takes care of it, she loves it, and I'm nice to it. One day, a year or so ago, our little dog Sophie had gone to a dog sitter, and she had been there for about a month. We were traveling all over the world, and usually it's fine. When she came back this time, her cornea on her eye had been scratched, and she was visibly fearful. She'd been around some big dogs there that were scaring her and hurting her, and we didn't know it until we got back. And I noticed that when we got her, and that morning it was like, this is really an issue, and I wish I could do something about it. This is not normal for me with our dog Sophie. So I literally did this question storming exercise, this catalytic questioning around the issue. And I landed on a question that I decided I was going to live that day. The question was, how can I help Sophie feel more comfortable today? I was working at home. got the question lodged in my brain, and about 2 hours later, the question popped in my head. And I normally wouldn't do this, but the question provoked me to go up and just take Sophie for a short little walk. She loved it. Dogs love that stuff. 2 or 3 hours later, question popped in my head again. Boom, off I went. I just played with her and had fun. I can promise you, if I'd not done the exercise and not got that question lodged in my head, I would not have cared about Sophie that day. I'm that self-centered. I'm sorry. But the question helped me get uncentered into a different world and make a difference in a little dog's world. I'm really serious. Whatever the issue is, personal, professional, it's worth considering. Let me summarize a couple of things. This 424 project that I've started is all about what we're talking about, spending 4 minutes a day, 24 hours a year, asking nothing but questions to try to solve our problems better. Now, it can make a difference in all sorts of places. It can make a difference at work. And let me give you an example of someone where it made a difference. Andres Fixter works in cedar citrus groves in South Africa. Like here in Florida, they grow oranges. And Andres' job is to literally irrigate those groves. He's to make sure that all the water's getting in the right place. The question he's primarily caring about is, how can I make sure these groves are growing well, the water's getting there, etc. One day he notices that the baboons are going onto the groves, and they're going through a certain path, and he watches and notices, and they get to a single tree. And it doesn't make sense because the season's not done, the fruit shouldn't be ripe, why are they eating it? What's going on? And so he goes to the tree, he opens up a piece of fruit, and as soon as he opens it, he realizes it's sweet and ripe and juicy, and he tastes it, and it's wonderful. It makes no sense. He goes to his boss and asks his boss a question about, what's the deal here? And his boss could have said, Andres, you're an irrigation worker, get back to work. But his boss listened to his question, listened to his observation, went to the technical people. They discovered, much to their surprise, this tree had genetically mutated, and it was producing 2 seasons of fruit in a single season. That's competitive advantage. That's solving a business problem. And so they cloned the tree, put it all across cedar citrus groves. They couldn't keep it within cedar citrus. It's now the tree of choice across South Africa. But Andres was willing to ask different questions beyond his just irrigation role. He paid attention, other people listened, and it made a difference in their system. It can also make a difference at home. And let me finish up with this final image. We are a merger and acquisition family. So my wife now had 4 children, has 4 children. I had 3, now have 3, and now we have 7 kids. And now we have 6 grandchildren. This is one of them. Her name is Stella. And I love photography. It's my second passion next to leadership and innovation, and my wife. Susie, wherever you are in the world, I didn't really say that. So here's the issue. I'm taking this picture of little Stella, and I'm up like this. She's right down there. I'm snapping. And then later that night, I process the images, and I look at it. And I realize for the first time what I didn't see when I was looking through the camera, which was she was really watching me. Can you see it in her eyes? Seriously watching me. And that's the image I want us to walk away with today. It's not just the people around you in your school or your business or your home. They're all watching. And if we set the example of asking better questions, we will get better answers to the world we're facing. And there are some vexing issues out there. But trust me, the children of the world, I would be surprised if they don't face more difficult issues. And one of the greatest gifts we can give to them, I believe, is for us to become better at asking the right questions as adults. And if we do, they will get that skill from us that sometimes gets pounded right out of them. So I wish you the best as you go and do that, and I hope you do. And I would love to hear your stories as you do. Good luck. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. We have about a minute for one question. I'm sorry about that. Shows you what kind of leader I am, right? There we go, you're on.
Hi, I'm Ezekiel. So how do you persuade leaders who really appreciate having a prepackaged idea or a solution, leading with a solution, to step back and ask questions. How do you persuade people to embrace that?
By being completely focused on the external world of whatever business or organization you're a part of. Is yours a business, a school, or a government organization you're in? Business? It's a business. So you've got customers, right? To me, it's getting out of my office, getting into the world, collecting primary data, watching those customers, talking to those customers, trying things that help those customers' world be better. And as I do that, I'll start collecting data. Michael Sippy at Twitter told Clayton Christensen and me when we're doing this project about questioning, he said, what are the conditions under which I can ask the right questions? And the conditions are, get out of your offices, get into the world, get closer to the people whose lives you're trying to make a difference in. As you collect that data and start asking the questions, because the data will provoke you when you're out there with the people, they'll provoke you to start asking questions you normally would not ask. And then when you come back and present that to your boss, it's not just you asking a clever question that's obnoxious, but it's you asking a question with some data collected about the end user that should matter to that boss. And if it doesn't matter to her or him, I would seriously consider going to a different company. I'm not kidding. Because if they don't care about that kind of data, at one point or another, they will be disrupted. Great question. Thank you. Thank you very much. All the best. Thank you.